Tomorrow morning, every insect on Earth is gone. Not fewer, not endangered, not hiding. Gone. Every bee, every butterfly, every beetle beneath the bark, every ant under the pavement, every mosquito above the swamp, every termite inside a fallen tree, every mayfly larva clinging to stones beneath a river. And at first, the world might seem strangely peaceful. No buzzing at your window, no flies circling the kitchen, no mosquito whining in the dark beside your ear. But then, something far more unsettling begins. The birds grow quiet. The flowers stop setting seed. The soil starts to change. Fruit trees bloom beautifully and produce almost nothing. Rivers lose the tiny lives that fed the fish. Forests still stand, but their future has already begun to disappear. Because insects are not background noise, they are the hidden machinery of the living planet, and if they vanished tomorrow, the Earth would not end in a single explosion. It would unravel. My name is Nathan Wild, and I've spent much of my life looking closely at the creatures most people step over, swat away, or never notice at all. But the smaller the animal, the more I've learned to ask one question: what is the world secretly depending on? To understand what would happen if insects disappeared, we have to begin with a strange truth. The planet we know was built, in part, by tiny bodies. Insects are among the most diverse animals ever to exist. Scientists have described roughly 900,000 living kinds, and the real number is almost certainly far higher. The Smithsonian notes that insects represent an enormous share of known life, with estimates still uncertain because so many species remain undiscovered. That is the first mystery.
We live on a planet dominated not by lions, whales, or elephants, but by creatures small enough to rest on a fingertip. And they have been here for an almost impossible length of time. Long before humans walked upright, before birds filled the skies, before flowers covered the continents, insects were already experimenting with survival. A global insect tree of life study reported that insects were established on land around 400 million years ago. Personally, I find that staggering. Imagine Earth before grass, before fruit, before the first dinosaur ever lifted its head. Insects were already there, exploring soil, plants, water, darkness, and air. They learned to fly before almost any other animal. They learned to chew wood, drink nectar, harvest fungus, build cities, wage war, disguise themselves as leaves, glow in the night, and navigate by sunlight, scent, vibration, and even the stars. But their greatest achievement was not their strangeness, it was their usefulness. And that is why their disappearance would be so devastating. The first day without insects would feel eerie, but not catastrophic. Humans would wake up, cars would move, lights would switch on, cities would still breathe, supermarkets would still have food on the shelves. Wheat, rice, and corn would not instantly vanish because many of our major staple crops are wind-pollinated or self-pollinated. For a few hours, some people might even celebrate. No mosquitoes, no cockroaches, no wasps at the picnic table, no ants in the kitchen. But nature does not count value by how much we like something. Nature counts value by connection. And insects are connected to almost everything. By the second morning, the first victims would not be humans.
They would be the animals that rely on insects for breakfast. Across forests, gardens, wetlands, farms, and mountain slopes, birds would search for food that no longer exists. Swallows would carve through empty air. Woodpeckers would tap into bark and find silence. Warblers would flick from twig to twig, discovering nothing beneath the leaves. And the greatest tragedy would happen in nests. Many adult birds can eat seeds, berries, or nectar, but their chicks often need soft, protein-rich insect food. One scientific review notes that about 96% of North American terrestrial birds rear their young partly or entirely on insects. Think about that. Not one rare bird, not a few specialists, almost the entire chorus of a continent. A chick is not built to grow on beauty, it is built on protein, fat, and speed. Parents may bring hundreds or thousands of tiny insects to a nest in a single breeding season. Caterpillars, flies, beetles, grasshoppers, each one is a mouthful of future song. Without them, spring would become quieter every year. At first, the adult birds would try to adapt. They would search wider. They would compete harder. Some would switch diets. But chicks cannot wait for evolution. They need food now. And this is where the disappearance of insects becomes something darker. Because it is not only the insect eaters that suffer, it is the creatures that eat the insect eaters. Hawks lose small birds. Snakes lose frogs and lizards. Foxes lose ground-nesting birds. Bats lose the living clouds they hunt at night. In rivers, fish lose mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies, midges, the delicate aquatic insects that spend part of their lives underwater before rising into the air for one brief, shimmering act of adulthood.
I've stood beside mountain streams at dusk and watched mayflies rise like sparks from the water. It feels almost magical, but to a trout, that magic is dinner. Remove the insects, and food webs do not simply lose one thread. They lose the thread that ties many others together. And yet, this is still only the beginning, because the most famous job insects perform is not feeding birds. It is carrying life from flower to flower. Pollination is one of the great quiet miracles of the natural world. A bee lands on a blossom, a butterfly uncurls its proboscis, a beetle pushes through petals, a tiny midge visits a flower so small most people would never notice it. Pollen sticks to their bodies, they fly, crawl, or drift to another bloom, and without knowing it, they make seeds, fruits, forests, and future generations possible. According to the major IPBES assessment on pollinators and food production, around 75% of global food crop types and nearly 90% of wild flowering plants depend at least partly on animal pollination. Now, pause there for a moment. That does not mean 75% of all calories disappear overnight. Humanity gets many calories from grasses like wheat, rice, and corn. But calories are not the whole story. What starts to disappear are colors, flavors, micronutrients, almonds, many fruits, many vegetables, many spices, some oils. Coffee yields in many places would suffer. Cacao, the plant behind chocolate, depends on tiny pollinating midges. The world would not immediately starve, but it would become poorer, blander, less nutritious, and far more fragile. Orchards would bloom and fail. Farmers would walk between trees that look alive but are no longer truly producing. Markets would change first through price, then through scarcity.
Then through memory. Children born years later might hear stories of foods that were once ordinary. Imagine explaining a cherry to someone who has never tasted one. Imagine describing the smell of a summer orchard as if it were a lost rainforest. But even that is not the most frightening part, because insects are not only responsible for helping life begin, they are also responsible for helping death return to life. Every forest floor is a slow-moving feast. Leaves fall, branches snap, animals die, dung lands in grass, fruit rots, wood collapses, and almost immediately, armies of small recyclers arrive.